all the ideas from Daniel Kahneman's book, Thinking Fast and Slow. The book reveals how our mind uses two systems of thinking, a fast, intuitive one, and a slow, analytical one, system 2, and how this impacts decisions. It explains the cognitive biases that lead to errors and teaches how to make more conscious choices. It's worth reading to better understand your own behavior, avoid thinking traps, and improve your decisions in life and work. Kahneman, a Nobel laureate in economics in 2002, wrote the book in 2011 based on decades of research, and it became a global bestseller translated into 40 languages. Interestingly, he collaborated with Amos Tversky, whose early death prevented them from sharing the Nobel, but their work formed the basis of the book. On X, users call it an epiphany about the mind, and its popularity is confirmed by millions of copies sold and its influence on psychology and business. Chapter 1. The characters. Your mind works through two systems, a fast, intuitive one, and a slow, analytical one, system 2, which determine how you think and decide. Notice when intuition takes over and check your conclusions to avoid mistakes. Practice the pause for analysis method, stopping before an important decision to engage system 2. Write down your thoughts to better understand which system dominates. Note how this improves your decisions. Before making a choice, for example, a purchase, pause and think about the pros and cons. For example, write down why you want a new job to understand if it's intuition or logic. Ask yourself, is this a fact or a feeling? This clarifies thinking. For example, instead of an impulsive phone purchase, analyze the budget and note how it saved money. Or, write down reasons for a career change and note how it helped make a thoughtful decision. The systems are your mind. This chapter teaches you to recognize how you think to choose better. Chapter 2, Attention and Effort. System 2 requires effort and is limited in resources, so use it sparingly for complex tasks. Distribute your attention, avoiding multitasking to conserve mental energy. Practice the focus on one task method, working on something important without distractions. Plan complex tasks for when you are full of energy, such as in the morning. Note how this increases productivity. Allocate 25 minutes to one task, turning off your phone. For example, tackle difficult issues in the morning when your mind is fresh. Write down what distracts you to eliminate interference. This maintains mental clarity. For example, write a report without social media and notice how quickly it's done. Or plan your budget in the morning and note how it simplified the analysis. Effort is a resource. This chapter teaches you to conserve attention to think more effectively. Chapter 3, The Lazy Controller. System 2 often gets lazy about controlling intuition, leading to hasty conclusions. Check your judgments by asking questions. For example, do I have enough data? Practice the critical pause method, stopping to evaluate your thoughts before acting. Surround yourself with people who challenge your assumptions. Note how this reduces errors. Before answering a controversial question, ask, what is my opinion based on? For example, discuss decisions with a friend who thinks differently. Pause before an important choice to think. This strengthens rationality. For example, before agreeing to a deal, check the facts and avoid losses, noting the clarity. Or, discuss a plan with a colleague and note how it revealed weaknesses. Control is accuracy. This chapter teaches you to keep intuition in check for better decisions. Chapter 4, The Associative Machine. System 1 creates associations that influence perception, often misleading. Notice how random images or words shape your thoughts and check them. Practice the associative analysis method, writing down what influenced your opinion to identify biases. Focus on facts, not first impressions. Note how this makes judgments more accurate. Write down why you trust someone to understand the role of associations. For example, ignore flashy ads and check product reviews. Ask yourself, is this logic or emotion? This clarifies thinking. For example, don't buy a product because of attractive packaging. Instead, study the ingredients and save money. Or write down why a colleague seems unreliable and note how this corrected your opinion. Associations are filters. This chapter teaches you to see how the mind distorts reality. Chapter 5, cognitive ease. Your mind prefers simple and familiar things, which can lead to erroneous conclusions. Be skeptical of what seems too easy and seek additional data. Practice the complicating perception method, deliberately asking yourself difficult questions about a situation. Check your sources of information to avoid being deceived by simplicity. Note how this improves your conclusions. Before agreeing to a news story, ask, who said this and why? For example, look for facts behind sensational headlines, rather than believing them immediately. Write down questions that complicate the analysis. This increases accuracy. For example, don't believe rumors about a colleague. Instead, clarify the facts and avoid bias. Or check product data and note how it saved you from a bad purchase. Complexity is truth. This chapter teaches you to dig deeper to avoid deception. Chapter 6, norms, surprises, and causes. The mind strives to see order and causes, even where there are none, which distorts perception. Doubt simple explanations and seek evidence to avoid false conclusions. Practice the causality check method, asking, is this really connected? Consider alternative versions of events to broaden your perspective. Note how this makes thinking more objective. Before concluding a project failure, ask, what else could have influenced it? For example, write down 3 possible causes of an event, not just one. Check data, don't trust intuition. This reduces misconceptions. For example, don't blame a colleague for a mistake. Instead, find out the circumstances and find a solution. Or consider why a stock fell and note how this adjusted your strategy. Causes are traps. This chapter teaches you to look for the truth behind the obvious. Chapter 7, the answer to an easier question. The mind often substitutes complex questions with simpler ones, leading to errors in judgment. Ask yourself precise questions to avoid oversimplification. Practice the query clarification method, rephrasing the question to be specific. Check what question you are actually answering to stay on the right track. Note how this improves your answers. Before making a decision, ask, what am I actually responding to? For example, rephrase, will I be happy? To, what do I need for happiness? Write down the original and clarified questions. This clarifies thinking. For example, instead of, should I change jobs? Ask, what benefits will I gain? And make a choice, noticing the clarity. Or clarify, who is to blame? To, how can this be fixed? And note the solution. Precision is power. This chapter teaches you to ask the right questions for correct conclusions. Chapter 8, the law of small numbers. Your mind overestimates conclusions drawn from small samples, leading to erroneous judgments. Check if there's enough data to trust statistics and avoid hasty generalizations. Practice the sample evaluation method, asking, how large is this group? Compare small data sets with larger bodies of information. Note how this makes conclusions more reliable. Before trusting a survey, clarify how many people participated. For example, look for studies with large sample sizes for important decisions. Write down which data you consider reliable. This reduces the risk of misconceptions. For example, don't believe a new product is popular because of 10 reviews. Check hundreds and avoid making a mistake. Or compare a local poll with a national one and note how this changed your opinion. Data volume is accuracy. This chapter teaches you to rely on large samples to avoid deception. Chapter 9, anchors. Numbers or facts heard first distort your evaluations, even if they are arbitrary. Ignore initial figures and start your analysis with a clean slate to be more objective. Practice the anchor reset method, consciously rejecting initial information, such as a price. Seek independent data for comparison. Note how this improves your calculations. Before buying, don't rely on the first price offered. For example, compare product prices in different stores, ignoring discounts. Write down your estimates without the influence of initial figures. This makes choices more rational. For example, don't agree to a salary based on the employer's first figure. Research the market and get more. Or evaluate a house ignoring the starting price and note how it saved money. Anchors are traps. This chapter teaches you to avoid the influence of random numbers for accurate decisions. Chapter 10, the science of availability. You overestimate events that easily come to mind, which distorts your perception of reality. Doubt your assessments if they are based on recent or vivid memories. Practice the availability check method, asking, why did I remember that? Rely on statistics, not personal impressions. Note how this corrects judgments. Before making a conclusion about a risk, check if a recent event is influencing you. For example, look for data rather than trusting news about disasters. Write down what influenced your opinion. This reduces bias. For example, don't be afraid to fly after news of a crash. Instead, study the statistics and calm down. Or, don't think thefts are frequent because of one incident, and note how data changed your view. Availability is a mirage. This chapter teaches you to look at facts, not vivid images. Chapter 11, availability, emotion, and risk. Emotions amplify the availability effect, causing you to overestimate risks or benefits. Calm your feelings before assessing a situation to think more clearly. Practice the emotional neutralization method, taking a deep breath and focusing on facts. Check statistics to avoid the influence of fear or excitement. Note how this makes you more rational. Before making a risk decision, breathe and evaluate the data, not emotions. For example, study the probability, don't panic over rumors, write down the facts, ignoring feelings. This reduces distortions. For example, don't refuse investments out of fear of losses. Instead, check the market and profit. Or, don't exaggerate the benefits of a diet out of enthusiasm, and note how facts adjusted your plan. Emotions are noise. This chapter teaches you to separate feelings from facts for correct conclusions. Chapter 12, Tom W.'s competence. Your mind creates stereotypes that hinder accurate judgments about people or events. Focus on specific facts about a person, not general assumptions. Practice the individual analysis method, collecting data about the situation instead of relying on images. Check how much your expectations are based on reality. Note how this improves your assessments. Before judging a person, clarify their achievements, not their profession. For example, write down facts, not impressions. About a new colleague, ask yourself, what is my opinion based on? This increases objectivity. For example, don't consider a student lazy due to a stereotype. Instead, find out their results and change your opinion. Or, evaluate a doctor based on reviews, not appearance, and note how this helped your choice. Stereotypes are shackles. This chapter teaches you to see the person, not the image. Chapter 13, Linda, less is more. The mind believes in detailed stories, even if they are less probable, which leads to errors. Evaluate probability based on base rates, not vivid details. Practice the judgment simplification method, ignoring extraneous details and focusing on key facts. Compare your conclusions with general statistics. Note how this makes predictions more accurate. Before making a forecast, ask, what is the base rate probability? For example, ignore story details and check the numbers. Write down which facts are real and which are embellishments. This reduces misconceptions. For example, don't believe Linda is an activist because of a description. Instead, check statistics and avoid error. Or, evaluate a project's chances based on the market, not narratives, and note the accuracy. Simplicity is truth. This chapter teaches you to trust base rates, not stories. Chapter 14, causes trump statistics. You tend to trust causes and stories more than statistics, which distorts decisions. Check the data, even if a story seems compelling. Practice the statistical priority method, favoring numbers over narratives. Ask yourself, what do the facts say? Note how this saves you from mistakes. Before making a choice, study the statistics, not personal stories. For example, record data, not impressions from a story. Compare causes with numbers. This makes thinking more objective. For example, don't buy stocks because of a friend's success. Instead, check the market and save money. Or, choose a doctor based on ratings, not stories, and note the right choice. Statistics are a compass. This chapter teaches you to rely on numbers, not narratives. Chapter 15, regression to the mean. Extreme results often regress to the mean, but the mind ignores this, expecting repetition. Account for regression when predicting the future, and don't overestimate isolated cases. Practice the mean expectation method, assuming results will be closer to the norm. Check past data to confirm predictions. Note how this improves forecasts. Before making a forecast, ask, what is the average trend? For example, record past results to see the norm. Don't expect records to be repeated. This increases accuracy. For example, don't expect an athlete to repeat a record. Instead, predict the average result and win your bet. Or, don't rely on constant profits, and note how this adjusted your plan. The mean is reality. This chapter teaches you to predict soberly, avoiding illusions. Chapter 16, taming intuitive predictions. Intuitive predictions are often wrong if not adjusted with statistics. Start with base rates and make adjustments based on facts. Practice the forecast adjustment method, adding data to intuition to make it more reliable. Check your predictions a week later to learn. Note how this makes you more accurate. Estimate the base rate probability, for example, of project success, before making a forecast. For example, adjust expectations by adding market data, record your forecast, and check it. This improves foresight. For example, don't expect a startup's quick success. Instead, consider statistics and plan better. Or, check a sales forecast and note how adjustment increased accuracy. Correction is wisdom. This chapter teaches you to combine intuition with facts for success. Chapter 17, the illusion of understanding. Your mind creates simplified stories about the past to explain events, which leads to overconfidence. Doubt your explanations and check them based on facts, not memories. Practice the alternative stories method, devising other versions of events to broaden your perspective. Look for data that contradicts your narrative. Note how this makes you more cautious. Before explaining a failure, ask, what other factors could have influenced it? For example, write down 3 alternative reasons for a project's success. Check statistics. Don't trust memory. This reduces overconfidence. For example, don't assume your business success is solely your merit. Consider the market and adjust your plan. Or, rethink an exam failure and note how it revealed gaps in preparation. Humility is clarity. This chapter teaches you to avoid oversimplification to see reality. Chapter 18, the illusion of validity. You overestimate the accuracy of your knowledge, especially if memories are vivid or recent. Acknowledge uncertainty and gather more data before drawing conclusions. Practice the confidence assessment method, asking, how wrong could I be? Consult with others to get a fresh perspective. Note how this saves you from mistakes. Before making a forecast, assess how unsure you are and look for facts. For example, discuss your opinion with a colleague to identify weaknesses. Write down what could go wrong. This increases objectivity. For example, don't be sure about stock growth. Instead, check the market and avoid losses. Or discuss a plan with a friend and note how this adjusted the strategy. Uncertainty is wisdom. This chapter teaches you to doubt to be more accurate. Chapter 19, intuition versus formulas. Intuition often yields to algorithms in accuracy, especially in complex tasks. Use formulas or statistics for important decisions where data is available. Practice the algorithmic approach method, applying proven rules instead of guesswork. Trust intuition only in familiar situations. Note how this improves results. For selecting an employee, apply a formula for investment evaluation, not intuition. Write down when formulas worked better. This increases accuracy. For example, hire a candidate based on scores, not impression, and note the success. Or use a budget calculator and note how it saved money. Formulas are reliability. This chapter teaches you to trust data, not just gut feelings. Chapter 20, expert intuition. When can you trust it? Expert intuition is reliable only in predictable environments with regular practice. Check if an expert has experience in a stable environment before trusting them. Practice the environment assessment method, analyzing how predictable the situation is. Combine intuition with data for better decisions. Note how this protects against deception. Before trusting an expert, clarify their experience and successes. For example, ask, is this field stable? Use statistics alongside expert advice. This increases reliability. For example, trust a chess coach, but check a doctor's statistics. Or combine an investor's advice with data and note how it improved your choice. Experience is context. This chapter teaches you when to believe experts to avoid making mistakes. Chapter 21, the outside view. You overestimate your chances of success, ignoring external factors. Look at the situation through the eyes of an outside observer to be more objective. Practice the outside analysis method, imagining how someone else would evaluate your plans. Compare your case with similar ones to account for risks. Note how this adjusts expectations. Before a project, ask, how does this look to others? For example, study how similar plans worked for others. Write down external risks. This reduces optimism. For example, evaluate a startup like an investor and account for risks, avoiding failure. Or compare your plan with others and note how it revealed weaknesses. The outside view is sobriety. This chapter teaches you to see more broadly to avoid delusion. Chapter 22, the engine of capitalism. Overconfidence drives entrepreneurship, but often leads to failures. Consider base rates of success, not just optimism. Practice the realistic forecast method, estimating chances based on statistics. Consult with experts to balance enthusiasm. Note how this saves you from risks. Before starting a business, check the success statistics in the industry. For example, discuss the plan with a mentor to identify risks. Write down the probabilities of failure. This makes the approach more rational. For example, study how often startups fail and revise your budget, avoiding losses. Or consider investor advice and note how it strengthened the plan. Realism is resilience. This chapter teaches you to balance optimism with facts. Chapter 23, Bernoulli's errors. People often misjudge probabilities due to intuitive errors, which distorts financial decisions. Check your probability estimates using statistics to avoid misconceptions. Practice the objective probability method, comparing your assumptions with actual data. Focus on long-term results, not momentary emotions. Note how this improves your decisions before investing. Study historical data. Don't trust your gut feeling. For example, write down expected probabilities and check them with numbers. Ignore short-term emotions when choosing. This increases accuracy. For example, don't invest in stocks because of rumors. Instead, check the data and avoid losses. Or compare a project's chances of success with the market and note how this adjusted your plan. Probabilities are facts. This chapter teaches you to rely on numbers to avoid making mistakes. Chapter 24, prospect theory. People fear losses more than they value gains, which affects choices. Weigh risks and benefits rationally, not letting the fear of loss dominate. Practice the equal analysis method, evaluating losses and gains equally. Check how emotions distort your choices and rely on logic. Note how this makes decisions more balanced. Before a deal, write down what you lose and what you gain, comparing them. For example, ask yourself, is this fear or calculation? Use a calculator for objectivity. This reduces emotional bias. For example, don't refuse a new job out of fear of change. Instead, compare the pros and start noticing the success. Or evaluate a car purchase logically and note how it saved money. Balance is clarity. This chapter teaches you to choose without succumbing to the fear of loss. Chapter 25, the endowment effect. You overestimate things you own, which hinders reasonable decisions. Treat your assets neutrally, as if they didn't belong to you. Practice the newcomer's perspective method, imagining you're evaluating an item for the first time. Compare market value with your own assessment. Note how this helps make objective decisions. Before selling, ask, would I buy this now? For example, appraise an old car as if it were someone else's. Check market prices. This reduces attachment. For example, sell an old laptop at market price don't overvalue it and earn more. Or give away unnecessary furniture, assessing it objectively. And note the liberation. Neutrality is freedom. This chapter teaches you to let go, to choose rationally. Chapter 26, bad events. Your mind overestimates negative events, which amplifies fear and distorts choices. Focus on probability, not the emotional weight of bad outcomes. Practice the negativity reduction method, recording the real chances of a bad scenario. Consider positive alternatives to balance your perspective. Note how this reduces anxiety. Before taking a risk, write down how likely the worst outcome is. For example, think about possible upsides, not just downsides. Check statistics to calm down. This makes choices calmer. For example, don't fear public speaking. Instead, assess the chances of failure and prepare, noticing confidence. Or, don't avoid a trip out of fear. Instead, study the risks and note the relief. Probability is sobriety. This chapter teaches you not to exaggerate the bad, to act more boldly. Chapter 27, the fourfold pattern. Your decisions depend on how you perceive gains, losses, probabilities, and risks, which is often illogical. Analyze choices by dividing them into gains and losses with different probabilities. Practice the 4 quadrants method, writing down scenarios. High divided by low probability, gain divided by loss. Check how emotions affect choices and adjust them. Note how this improves rationality. Before making a decision, draw a table with 4 scenarios. For example, evaluate emotions for each quadrant and choose a logical path. Check data for confirmation. This clarifies choices. For example, when deciding to invest, divide risks and benefits into quadrants and choose a safe path, noting success. Or when evaluating a move, consider scenarios and note how this simplified the decision. Structure is logic. This chapter teaches you to break down choices to be more accurate. Chapter 28, rare events. You overestimate rare events due to their vividness, which distorts decisions. Focus on base rates, not sensations. Practice the rarity assessment method, asking, how often does this happen? Check statistics to calm emotions. Note how this makes you more rational. Before fearing a rare event, study its frequency. For example, record the real chances of an airplane crash. Ignore sensational headlines. This reduces panic. For example, don't fear sharks. Instead, check attack statistics and swim calmly. Or don't expect a lottery win. Instead, save up, noting realism. Rarity is a myth. This chapter teaches you to ignore sensations for sober decisions. Chapter 29, risk policies. You tend to avoid risks when it comes to gains and seek them when it comes to losses, which can be detrimental. Evaluate risks neutrally based on long-term goals. Practice the balanced risk method, weighing consequences, not emotions. Plan actions considering stability. Note how this improves strategies. Before making a choice, ask, what's best in the long run? For example, write down the pros and cons of a risk. Focus on sustainability, not impulse. This increases success. For example, don't risk savings for a quick win. Instead, invest stably and earn. Or don't avoid career risk. Instead, plan and note the growth. Risk is calculation. This chapter teaches you to choose wisely to win. Chapter 30, keeping score. You evaluate decisions based on individual episodes, not the overall context, which distorts perception. Look at results in the long term, not isolated outcomes. Practice the overall balance method, summing all gains and losses over a period. Record outcomes to see the real picture. Note how this adjusts your perspective. Keep a journal of financial decisions for a month. For example, calculate all income and expenses, not just individual spending. Ignore one-off failures. This provides clarity. For example, don't get upset over one losing trade. Instead, evaluate your annual income and note the profit. Or count successes for the quarter and note how it inspired you. Context is truth. This chapter teaches you to see the whole picture to avoid delusion. Chapter 31, reversals. Your mind changes preferences depending on the context, leading to inconsistency. Check your decisions for stability in different situations. Practice the consistency check method, asking yourself, would I choose this again? Record your choices to identify contradictions. Note how this makes you more consistent. Before making a decision, ask, does this align with my goals? For example, compare your current choice with a past one. Keep a decision journal. This enhances logic. For example, don't change investments due to news. Instead, check them against your plan and save money. Or rethink turning down a job and note how consistency strengthened your choice. Stability is strength. This chapter teaches you to be true to your decisions. Chapter 32, Framing and Reality. How information is presented influences your choices, even if the essence doesn't change. Analyze data without the influence of phrasing, focusing on the core. Practice the neutral frame method, rephrasing the problem in simple terms. Check how different descriptions change your opinion. Note how this makes your choices more objective. Before making a choice, rephrase the problem in your own words. For example, ignore marketing tricks and look at the facts. Write down how framing influenced you. This enhances rationality. For example, don't choose a product because of 90% success. Instead, check the data and save money. Or rephrase the risk of surgery and note how it clarified the decision. Frames are illusions. This chapter teaches you to see the essence to choose correctly. Chapter 33, Two Selves. Your mind divides its perception of life into an experiencing self, which lives in the moment, and a remembering self, which evaluates the past. Focus on creating pleasant moments to improve current well-being. Practice the mindful moment method, paying attention to the current experience, for example, the taste of food. Balance short-term joys with long-term memories to make life feel fuller. Note how this increases satisfaction. Every day, dedicate 5 minutes to being fully present in the moment. For example, plan events that will leave vivid memories, such as trips. Write down what brought joy today. This enhances happiness. For example, enjoy coffee without your phone and notice how it improved your morning. Or organize a picnic with friends and note how it created warm memories. Moments are life. This chapter teaches you to appreciate the present to live more vibrantly. Chapter 34, Life as a Story. The remembering self creates stories from your life, often ignoring the duration of events in favor of vivid endings. Strive to end events positively so that memories are pleasant. Practice the final chord method, adding a joyful ending to tasks. For example, gratitude at the end of the day. Pay less attention to minor failures, focusing on the overall picture. Note how this makes the past brighter. End your workday with a compliment to a colleague. For example, write down what made the day special, ignoring minor setbacks. Plan pleasant endings, for example, dinner after a project. This improves perception. For example, end a meeting with a smile and notice how it improved everyone's mood. Or, after a difficult day, treat yourself to dessert and note how it smoothed out the memories. Endings are colors. This chapter teaches you to create happy stories. Chapter 35, Experienced Well-Being. Your happiness depends more on the frequency of pleasant moments than on their intensity. Increase the number of small joys in your daily life, such as walks. Practice the daily micro-joys method, adding small pleasures, for example, music in the mornings. Avoid prolonged stress by breaking it into parts. Note how this increases your well-being. Every day, do something pleasant. For example, listen to your favorite song. For example, break work into blocks with breaks for rest. Write down what brought joy. This fills life with warmth. For example, drink tea in silence and notice how it relieved tension. Or take breaks during study and note how it improved your mood. Small is much. This chapter teaches you to find happiness in simple things. Chapter 36, Reflections on Life. Your perception of happiness depends on how the remembering self evaluates life, often through goals and comparisons. Focus on personal achievements, not on competing with others. To feel satisfaction, practice the personal progress method. tracking your successes, for example, new skills. Celebrate small victories to strengthen your sense of purpose. Note how this makes life fuller. Keep a journal. Recording your steps towards goals. For example, compare yourself to your past self, not to your neighbor. Note successes. For example, completing a course. This boosts self-esteem. For example, write down how you learned a language and feel proud, ignoring others' successes. Or note the completion of a project and note how it inspired you. Progress is happiness. This chapter teaches you to value your journey, to live contentedly. This is such a wonderful book. I wrote down all the important points from this book, all the techniques and tools, and also made a step-by-step action plan based on the book. You can get all this in my private club, Place of Power. There you will find a ready-made detailed text analysis with similar lists for hundreds of best-selling self-help books. Also, only there can you get an exclusive analysis of the newest best-selling books that are currently at the top of Amazon sales charts. Join via the link in the description and enjoy.